Good morning everyone, and how are you doing today? Hey, do you remember when Honda hybrids used to look cool? Neither do I. Look at this thing, it's a booger. Actually, I'm kind of under the weather right now, and I mean that with all sincerity. This is what my phlegm looks like. Not to gross anyone out, but we've all been there. What do we got going on today? Well, simple. We're gonna put a new radio, this guy right here, the KDC X500, along with two sets of 6.5-inch kicker speakers. Those are the KSC 650s. What the heck is that? Just some random speaker screwed into the carpet in the back. I'm sure those sound amazing. But the neat thing is, this car doesn't even really need a dash cable. It's just a singleton radio. That doesn't mean it's gonna be easy to get out. Typically Honda likes to put two screws in the back, so we're gonna have to pull most of this to get that out. But look at this gauge cluster. And of course the check engine light was on. What are you gonna do? But it does have power windows and power locks, so yay there. So the plan today is to upgrade this radio, put some new speakers in, and get this thing out of here. Ready to do it? Where's Fernando? Fernando's here somewhere. He'll join us at some point. Let's get going. So to get this radio out, we have to drop this here, which means we have to drop the glove box, and then we can pull this guy out. Hey, can you drop that glove box? I don't know if it has the Honda.
No, but this is broke already. You see? This one is broke. Hang on.
Is there screws?
Yeah.
Perfect. Look at that. So he's already got a broken glove box there. Might be able to fix that. Look at that. Really all we have to do is remove the glove box, two screws in the bottom, pull the two screws on this side, and this comes right out. And then there's 4 screws. Radio comes out, which isn't the greatest of news because that means now we have to attach our brackets onto our aftermarket radio, which usually doesn't work out all that well in a Honda. Now as for the speakers, well, we couldn't ask for anything better than that. If you'll notice this little spot right here, and there's our speaker. So all we have to do now is unscrew it and put a new one in. Fernando's got his off on this side already. How do they have a factory plug? Oh, you have a factory speaker.
Yeah.
Oh, see, I don't have a factory speaker.
Oh, really?
No, I have like this thing, a Pioneer. All right, well, let me get mine out and see what that looks like. It's like mysteries of the unknown. Oh, I just have some duct tape on mine.
Oh.
That's cool. You never know what you'll find. So there you go. Don't use duct tape or a wire insulator. It doesn't always work that well. I'm gonna head over to the bench and let's try to figure out how we're gonna attach our radio to the brackets for this radio. Yay. But before we do that, let's go ahead and open up these KS series speakers and make sure they fit. Since Fernando already has his well along, I'll pass him a set. Now the one nice thing about the KS series speakers from Kicker is it's a high performance shallow mount driver. So it's very shallow, and it's got a nice sexy tweeter built into it, and it does put out a good amount of mid bass, even though it is a shallower driver, which is typically the problem with shallower drivers is they lack the mid bass. Kickers don't do that. They put some effort into theirs to make sure they sound good. Now when you're dealing with one of these Hondas that has very limited room, that's why we go with these. And there you go, it fits right into the factory bezel. No problems. So as you can see what we're talking about though, see how it has this giant cavity in there? You can cut all that out, but there is metal behind it and a real pain in the butt. And why would you want to destroy a classic like this? I mean, you want to keep it as factory as possible, I would assume, because the value on these, I'm sure, is going to skyrocket. We're not just gonna screw this in the door. Like always, you wanna make sure you put foam on the back of this because it's going in plastic on metal, and that's never a good thing. So we'll go ahead and put our 1/32 inch foam on the back of the speaker before we attach it into the car. The rear ones are gonna be a little bit more interesting, so we'll save those for a little bit once we get to that. But for now, let's go ahead and switch cameras to the top down so we can take a look at this guy here. Alright, so here we go. We have the radio. For the harness, we have the BHA 1721. What you need?
The harness so I can see which one is positive.
And I'm going to go ahead and give this to Fernando real quick so that he can plug it in and check our wire colors that are going into the door. And you're thinking, wait, what? Well, join me and I'll show you. So a lot of the time on these older cars, the wire that's behind the radio actually matches the wire that's in the door. In the door, he has a green, yellow, gray, red. Alright, so now we can come over here and we can see
Green yellow is positive.
So we're looking at the gray wires right here to match up to the wires on the opposite side of the plug. So in my driver's door, I have a light green and a dark green with black.
Yep. Dark green with black is positive.
So just a little trick, if you're doing something like this and you're like, man, you know, you don't have to polarity test, you don't have to do anything, you just use the harness. Crazy. Now looking at these two harnesses, basically what we have, the whites, grays, greens, and purples. The white is the driver's front, the gray is the passenger front like we just talked about. Green is going to be driver's rear and purple is passenger rear. Then we have a blue-white remote turn on, which this has a blue amplified and tenor turn on, so we're going to go ahead and hook those two together. This has a light blue yellow. This would be if it has steering wheel controls. This car doesn't have those, so we don't need to worry about it. We have a brown on here. This is the phone mute. This isn't going to be used for anything, so we'll just leave those alone. And then we have the yellow constant 12 volts, red accessory, and black ground, which match those over here. The only thing that this has that this doesn't is the illumination control, so this radio is not going to dim at nighttime. So this orange and the orange white are for those. One is going to be an illumination, the other one is going to be a variable illumination, which most radios don't have. They just still pin for it, which is actually kind of nice because you can use that in this harness for the steering wheel controls. You can unpin them and move them over into here. Saves you money in having to buy a second one of these to pin it for the steering wheel controls. So we need to just go ahead and connect those wires together. We'll set that aside for right now because what we want to look at is how we're going to make these metal brackets attached to this radio and still look good in the dash. Now these screws are an 8mm as well as a Phillips. Do yourself a favor and just use the 8mm. More than likely the Phillips is just going to strip. These are also the same type screws that are on this Kenwood, so we don't have to find different screws. Now on an aftermarket radio, they have little initials usually that say like T and N for Toyota and Nissan. They never have H because Hondas, well, they don't use them. So we'll go ahead and measure from the front here and see what we have that's close. So it looks like one is too far and the other is too close. So at this point what we just want to do is go ahead and mock it up and see how it looks in the dash and figure out what we have to do from there. Alright, let's take it over in the car and see how it looks. So as far as the depth goes, it's actually perfect. Couldn't ask for anything better there. The only problem we have is that we can see through this into the dash. That means we need to alleviate that problem. But otherwise, it's a nice fit. So we have these here, which are little trim rings that go around. I have a couple different sizes. What I want to do is snap this back in because it actually has clips that hold it in place. Figure out if any of those are going to work. I need to just shave like 1/8 of an inch off on either side of this. I'll be right back. So that'll definitely do the trick. That'll hide that for me. Let's go ahead and get this wiring harness all set up and then I'll meet you back in the car.
Screw into the carpet. Wow, that's new. Ah! They use duct tape, black tape. It's all about the tape, This speaker is done. So what we did, we just cut a little bit of the carpet that was really tight. We make new holes. We soldered a wire. There you go.
So come to find out, there's actually metal behind there. So there's a hole. It's really made for a speaker. Alright, so we got the radio all wired up and ready to go. Let's get it in the car. Dash screwed in. I believe Fernando's just finishing up the last speaker over there, and of course it's fighting him the whole way. Helpful tip, when you are putting in a single DIN like this, leave the face off until the very end. That way you don't accidentally scratch it or anything like that. The gap that we had is all gone. Looks nice and flush. Now, one of the nice things about having a bright light in the car like this is that we can see those gaps, so we don't have to worry about like if the sunlight were to hit it just right. So that's one of the things we look for. And also, Fernando finished getting that speaker mounted in. Now that means the 4 speakers are in, the radio's in. We can turn this thing on and take a listen to it. I'm gonna let him do that. I'm gonna go over to the workbench and see if I can fix that one little hinge there on his glove box. I think I have just the right thing to fix that.
Now let's do bloater check. All good.
This guy right here. So what this is a plastic welder. It takes these hot staples like these metal pieces here, they come in different shapes and sizes, and it will melt into the plastic and make it more rigid. Use these to fix bumpers and fun stuff like that, but well, we don't fix bumpers here. It should allow us to put his glove box back together for him. So basically what you do is you hold this little button here, it makes this thing super hot, and then you just melt it into plate. You let it cool for a second, and you pull it out. And if you've done it right, it'll hold the plastic in. So now what you end up with is these little legs sticking out like that. Have some flush trims. Just clip them off. And now we have a functioning glove box again. I'll get this over to Fernando so we can get it in the car. So even something as simple as a deck and 4 can add a little bit of excitement to the day. From being able to see through the radio into the dash, you don't want that, to having funky mounted speakers in the back that someone just cut some carpet and there was a hole back there so they screwed them in, to having a broken glove box. Lots of fun. But this one is done. Nice little upgrade for this little booger colored car. Fernando, what do you have to say to these fine people?
See you tomorrow, guys.
If we're lucky. Yeah, what do you say? Bye.